Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm gonna discuss about the SIP URI dialing, and we are gonna start with what is SIP URI, and then what are the benefits of SIP URI dialing, what is the URI format, and all other things step by step. So let's start this SIP URI dialing. So first, we will discuss about what is SIP URI dialing, then how SIP URI dialing works, then we are going to discuss about the benefits, directory URI format, and SIP URI dialing step by step. So let's start it with this one, that is what is SIP URI dialing, right? So SIP URI dialing, as you can see, it says unlike a URL, URI and its format is similar to an email address like this one. Let's say username @host, and therefore the host portion can be an IPv4 address or an FQDN, right? This one, it can be an IPv4 address or it can be a fully qualified domain name, right? Then what it says, SIP URI dialing, it is a method of initiating communication sessions using a SIP URI. And this SIP URI is a unique address which identifies a user or a resource on a SIP-based network, right? Now, it says what is the format, how we can use it. So it says it follows this format, and which says SIP user@example.com, where this user represents user's username, right? So as you can see, it says user@example. This user represents the username, and this example.com, it represents the domain address of your SIP server, right? And here you can see all these three examples like this one, alex.lewis @ this IP, that is 212.123.1.213. This is like your user and this is your IP address, right? And here it can be like this as well. Let's say the name support@cisco.com, or maybe the number 1234567 @cisco.com. So these all are the few examples how your SIP URI looks like, right? That is what it says, using FQDN or URI to dial an extension, and it is supported on limited SIP and SSCP devices. Then we have a next part, that is how SIP URI dialing works. It is exactly same like your sessions, like whenever you are making a call, a normal SIP call, and it is going from the client to the server, it is sending invite and 100 rank, like all those things. That is what I'm going to discuss about in much more detail, how this SIP URI dialing works. So it says it involves a series of steps to establish a communication session between two or more parties. And here you can see the first step. Let's say you are making a call from this point to the other point. Let's say this is your client, user agent client, and this is your server, that is user agent server. Okay, so it says the sender. So this client, this is your sender. Sender initiates the SIP URI dialing request by composing a SIP URI containing the recipient's address. So this is your recipient, this is your sender. It is having a recipient's address, and this sender is initiating the SIP URI request by sending SIP URI, which contains this particular recipient's address, right? This is your SIP client. And this SIP client sends an invite message to the recipient SIP server requesting the communication session. So this client is requesting to the SIP server so that they can establish a session between the client and the server. So, right, the first message would be this invite message. So then what it is already done. Then it says recipient's SIP server processes the invite message, authenticates the user, determines the user availability and preferred communication parameters. So what is this recipient SIP server? So you should be having the SIP server in between this client and the server. I can say this is your SIP server. So first invite, or I can say the request, will go to the SIP server. Then this SIP server will process the invite message. It will authenticate. It will determine the user's availability. This one, that means this user's availability and preferred communication parameters. So once it authenticates, determine the user availability and check the parameters, then it will send the invite message to the particular server, right? That is user agent server, not the SIP server, right? And then it says So it already authenticate, check the user's availability. It says if the recipient is available, this is your recipient. If the recipient is available, server sends a trying response to the server. If this is available, then this server will send 100 trying message to the client. Okay, that means this is available, and this SIP server sends already an invite message to the recipient, right? The server sends a trying response, that is 100 trying. This is 100 trying response to the sender, indicating that the request is being processed. That's right. This SIP server is processing the request to the recipients, but side by side, it is sending this 100 trying to the sender as well, right? And once the recipient accepts the call, right? This is your recipient. Once the recipient accepts the call, the server sends a ringing response to the sender. That means this is your server will send a 180 ringing message to this client because that client is responding to the request. That means it is sending, that means like you can say there is a call which is already going on. Not the call going on exactly, the ring is already happening. And that's why it is sending it will send the ringing 100 after 100 trying, it will send the 180 ringing response to the sender. That means it is notifying that the recipient's device is ringing. And the next step, when the recipient answers the call, let's say this recipient answers the call, server will send a 200 OK response. Now this server will send 200 OK response to this client as well. Okay, recipient answers the call, server sends a 200 OK response. That means establishing the session and enabling real-time communication. As soon as they respond, 200 OK will be there and the acknowledgement will be there, and then the RTP session will be established between these two parties, the client and the server, or I can say the sender and the recipient. This is how your SIP URI dialing, or I can say a normal SIP communication happens as well. After that, let's discuss about the benefits. What all are the benefits of SIP URI dialing? As you can see it up here under the benefits of SIP URI dialing, it offers numerous advantages for modern communication. And here you can see it is having a global reach, addressing is simplified, it having a flexibility and the integration as well. Let's see what it means, that global reach. That means SIP URIs enable communications with users worldwide, regardless of their location, as long as they are connected to the internet, right? So they must be connected with the internet. This SIP URI is having a global reach. You can use it like communication, you can use it worldwide, regardless of the location. Simplified addressing, that means using SIP URIs, you will be having like human readable addresses like this user@example.com, what we already discussed earlier, right? Instead of maybe the complex IP addresses or maybe the complex phone numbers. Flexibility, it says the SIP URIs are not tied to a specific device, allowing users to switch devices seamlessly during a call or a communication session, right? It is providing the flexibility to allow users to switch devices seamlessly, even if the call is already running, right? Then we have this integration, what it says. SIP URI dialing can easily integrate with other communication protocols, enabling interoperability between different systems and the different platforms. It can integrate with other communication protocols as well, right? After that, under this one, we have a directory URI format. Like what would be the proper format for the directory URI? So here you can see directory URI format. It says directory URIs are alphanumeric strings. It consists of a user and a host address separated by @ symbol, which we already discussed earlier. Like let's say this is user@example.com, right? And that is what it says. You can use a domain name or you can use an IP address as well. That is what it says. User at the domain, user@IP address. This would be the example, joy@cisco.com or maybe joy@ IP address, that is 10.10.10.1. Like much more detail about this directory URI format, as here you can see it supports the following formats in the user portion. Accepted characters are A to Z in lowercase, A to Z in uppercase, 0 to 9 exclamation, and all these special characters. And the limitation is the user portion should be having a maximum length of 47 characters. It can be less than that, but this is the maximum length of 47 characters. And the next thing which is important, that is user portion is case sensitive or case insensitive. Sorry. So it would be case sensitive or maybe case insensitive. It depends on the value of the parameter, right? So if you want to change the parameter, then you can change it to the case insensitive, but the default value is case sensitive. That is what you need to be, you need to have this thing in your mind. This URI lookup policy enterprise parameter, this is case sensitive by default, but if you want to change it, you can go to the enterprise parameters, you can check up the URI lookup policy, and then you can change it to case insensitive. That is about the user portion. Okay, and here much more detail in the host portion now. So it says it supports IPv4 address or an FQDN. Accepted characters are same like lowercase a to z, uppercase 0 to 9, hyphens and the dots. This is, I'm talking about the host portion now. Previously it was user portion. And next it says host portion cannot start or end with a hyphen. Host portion cannot have two dots in a row like 10 dot dot 10. You can't have that. And it should be a minimum of 2 characters, and host portion is not case sensitive, right? And due to database restrictions, the directory URI field has a maximum of 254 characters, right? Then we have the next part, which is SIP URI dialing step by step. This is the most important part I can say for this whole session, that is SIP URI dialing step by step, how you can configure it and what all are the things you need to configure on your call manager. So I have added all the steps one by one, right? So the step one, what it says step one. Step one says map directory URI address to an email address, right? Map directory URI address to email address. That means, or I can say email only. So here you can see map the directory URI to the email address, then include the mapping in your LDAP directory sync, or manually enter each end user settings into the directory URIs, right? And here you can see on the LDAP directory, here is the directory URI where you need to make changes and you need to use this mail here. That is what it says. Map the directory URI address to the email address of the user, right? Now, the most important thing here is you can skip this step if your Cisco UC environment is already LDAP synchronized, right? You can skip this step if you're already using LDAP synchronization. The directory URI address, because the directory URI address, it is already mapped to the email address of the user from the corporate directory, right? So keep this thing in your mind. If you're using LDAP synchronization already in your environment, then you can skip this step one, right? Next, we have this step two, where it says what you need to do is select the primary extension for each user. Primary extension, and where you can find the primary extension? You can find this primary extension on the end user page, right? Under the end user configuration, you can go to the that user, go to the end user, search it for one of the user and check it out. You will be able to see this directory number associations, and there you can find this primary extension, right? And what it says, once the directory URI for each user is mapped to their email, what we did in the previous step, you can navigate to this user management and user configuration, and you need to ensure the primary extension field is selected for each user. This is primary extension field. It should be selected for each user. What it will do, this will automatically associate the directory URI with the user's primary extension. That is what it will do. It will automatically associate directory URI with the user's primary extension. And you can see this directory URI on the line page as well, where you can see the directory number, right? Then let's move on to the next step where we need to check the URI partition. Yes. So step 3, it says ensure the URI partition is part of the phone CSS, right? whatever you have CSS on your phone, that is a part of that URI partition. That URI partition is actually should be a part of that phone CSS. So here, let's check it out. It says, check the directory URI partition is a part of phone CSS or not. Likewise, you can map the directory URI to an existing, and where you can check this one, you need to go to this enterprise parameters configuration and user management and select the appropriate directory URI alias partition. So you can go to this enterprise parameters configuration. I have added the screenshot here. Then you can search it out for this one, directory URI alias partition, right? And here you need to check, you need to actually not check, you need to actually mention the particular partition which should be a part of that phone CSS. That is what it says. Check the directory URI partition. This is directory URI alias partition. This partition should be a part of that phone CSS. I hope you know about the, maybe I can say you know in much more detail about the CSS and partition, how it works. If you have any doubts related to the CSS and partition, you can go to my channel and check the related video on the CSS and partition, or you can comment, you can send me a note on the email address as well, and you can ask me in the comment section as well. I'll surely answer it, right? So the third step, what we need to do is ensure the URI partition is a part of phone CSS. Okay, let's move on to the next part. There it says the case sensitivity. Okay, step 4, change case sensitivity in the URI lookup policy, right? What I was talking about, the case sensitive or case insensitive, right? So as we are already in enterprise parameters configuration section, you can check out for the URI lookup policy. And here you can see this URI lookup policy, and you can change it to the case insensitive if you want. As we know, default is case sensitive. As here you can see, this is the default case sensitive, and now I have changed it to the case insensitive. It depends on you whether you wanted to use it as a case sensitive or maybe the case insensitive, right? Let's say because I am using the case insensitive, that is why I have selected, or I just showed you this option is available. Then we have the step 5, which is update phone SIP profile. So as I believe you already know about it, like if we are working on the SIP, we need to create a SIP trunk as well. And under the SIP trunk, you would be having a SIP profile as well as SIP trunk security profile. So what you need to update in the SIP profile is you can go to the SIP trunk, that particular SIP trunk, or instead of going to the SIP trunk, actually, you can go to the SIP profile, which is a part of that particular SIP trunk. You can go to the phone SIP profile. You can check this use fully qualified domain name in SIP request. That is this option, right? Use fully qualified domain name in SIP request. And the next thing, you can check this dial string interpretation. Under this dial string interpretation, you can use this one. It's a drop down. You can use phone number consists of characters 0 to 9, A to D, star, hash, everything, whatever it is coming up. This would be your step 5. Now we have next step, that is step 6. Here you can see it is for multi-CCM clusters only. Here, what you need to do, you need to activate and configure ILS service, that is inter-cluster lookup service, and directory URI. It is only for the multi-CCM clusters only. So what it says, environments with multiple CCM clusters requires ILS activation and proper configuration, right? And the other step, you need to verify that user's URI address is replicated from a home cluster to remote cluster using ILS service, right? That is in the case of multiple CCM clusters, right? And we can check it out here, call routing, global development application, and check the learned directory URI section, right? You will be able to see this, whether it is like replicated from home cluster to remote clusters. Then we have next step, that is step number 7, where it says configure SIP trunks, and it is multi-CCM clusters only. What you need to do is configure the SIP trunks between each pair of clusters in your UC environment. The SIP trunk, which I was talking about earlier, it might be a different, because you need to create a SIP route pattern and you need to mention the SIP trunk as well. This is different because this is for multiple CUCM clusters. That is what it says. You need to configure SIP trunks between each pair of clusters as well. And under the SIP route pattern, we have an option for route list or SIP trunk as well. That SIP trunk might be going to your Cisco Expressway, right? That SIP trunk is different. And this SIP trunk, it says between each pair of clusters, it is a different, right? Next up, it says create SIP route patterns with the ILS route string as domain. So yeah, whenever you are creating this SIP route pattern, you will be able to see under the SIP route pattern, you will be able to see two things, right? The pattern you said, like whether you can use the domain or you can use the IP address. If you choose the domain, then you need to add the domain. If you are choosing the IP address, then you need to add the IP address, right? And after that, assign the respective SIP trunk toward the remote cluster as your destination. Then we have this one, step 8, and this would be your, I can say, the last step. It says modify URI display preference for B2B calls feature with Expressway, right? What you need to do is, here you can see URI dialing display preference. What would be the preference? And you can see the default is DN. You can change it to your URI, right? This URI. What it says, if you have Expressway with B2B configured in your UC environment, you can go to the service parameters, cluster wide parameters, and here you can set the URI dialing display preference to URI instead of the default directory numbers, right? And lastly, we need to ensure SIP trunk, which is going from CUCM towards Expressway using SIP profile. We need to activate this use FQDN in SIP request option. That is what we already checked it earlier. But here, why is it saying again, lastly, to ensure? Because maybe you're using a different SIP profile for the SIP trunk, which is going towards the Expressway, right? So you need to ensure this particular use FQDN in SIP request option is activated, or I can say it is checked, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next thing, or I can say the last slide of this section, which is showing like a flow chart, and it will show you like how it can compare, how it matches, how the call goes. Like this one, which is unified CM routing rules, as we can say. This is the most important, I can say. You will be able to understand so many things on this one. So here you can see it says, whenever you're making a call, it's first it will check, is LHS numeric? LHS, that is left hand side, that will be your like user portion, and the other one you can say the host portion, right? It says, is LHS numeric? Excuse me. Okay, it says either it's a yes or it's a no. So let's first discuss about this yes. It says, okay, yes, LHS is numeric. Then it says, is RHS is the IP address or the host name of a cluster member. The right hand side, whether it's a host name or it's an IP address, right? So it says if it's a yes, then it can analyze LHS and then it can check whether the call will be routed or the call is blocked, right? It is in case of this IP address. And let's say if that is a host name, is RHS the IP address or a host name? So let's say it's a no, it's not an IP address. Then it says, does RHS match cluster fully qualified domain name? Does it having a fully qualified domain name, like the whole domain name, right? It says if it's a yes, then it can again analyze the LHS. If it's not a fully qualified domain name, it says no. Then it asks, does RHS match organization top level domain? Right? It can be having a subdomain as well. Then it says, does RHS match organization top level domain? If it matches, then it will ask, okay, does LHS find a match? This LHS, what we were talking about earlier, numeric. If it finds a match, then yes, then it will offer the call. Okay, if it says this LHS do not find a match, then it will go to this no. Okay, I'm unable to find a match with the help of this LHS. And now it says, does RHS match organization top level domain? If it doesn't match, then it will check, okay, does RHS match a SIP route pattern which we created? right? It will, if it's a match, then it will route or block, whether it can route the call or it can block the call, right? If it doesn't match, even then also the call will drop, or I can the call will fail. Now let's come to the other part where we started is LHS numeric, because we discussed about the yes option. Now it says if is LHS numeric. If it says no, then what it will check? Does whole URI match a URI in the CSS and URI table, right? If it's a yes, it will offer a call. If it doesn't match, it says does whole URI match the one in ILS, that is inter-cluster lookup service. If it says yes, what it will do? It will route using SIP route patterns based on route string for ILS entry, right? It will route the call based on that SIP route pattern. If it's a no match, if it's not matching, then again it will go to this one. Does RHS match a SIP route pattern? This step. And if the whole URI doesn't match in ILS, then also again it's a no. Then also it will go to this. Does RHS match a SIP route pattern? If it says yes, RHS is matching with the SIP route pattern, then it will route the call based on the RHS. If it doesn't match a call, if it doesn't match a route pattern based on the RHS, then it will block the call, or I can say the call will be failed, right? And here as well, either route or block, right? So this is actually the I can say the flow chart, how your call looks like, or how your routing works, right? So I hope you understand this routing rule logic, or I hope you understand the SIP URI dialing, right? If you have any questions, you can just let me know in the comment section. And I hope you really like this video. Then please hit like, share, and subscribe my channel. And please press the bell icon so that you will be able to receive notifications of all my upcoming videos. And if you need to spend some time with me, you can go to this topman.io/technical venture. Here you can schedule some time with me. And next thing, if you want a particular training on the call manager, or I can say the Microsoft Teams as well, I'm gonna start it. And I'm gonna not only start it, I'm actually starting the new batch for the MS Teams as well as the call manager. You can let me know in the comment section, or maybe you can reach out to me on this technicalventure02@gmail.com. This is my email ID, right? So I hope you really like this video. Thank you.